My sister, Linda, enables her kids' criminal behavior. Now they're ruining the neighborhood, and I called the cops. When I came home from work, I noticed my shed door was open, and the padlock I used to keep it shut was broken. I had a lot of bags full of soda cans in there. Since I drink a lot of soda, I built up a huge collection that I was planning to cash in at the bottle drop soon. But there was more than just my cans missing from the shed. I was missing some gardening tools, a machete, and a gas can. I checked my security cameras. Early in the morning, right after I left for work, I saw my 3 nephews break into my shed using a hammer to smash the lock. They took the cans, as well as the other items. I called Linda, and she and her husband Mark denied that their kids did it until I showed up at their house with the footage. They were furious with their kids for robbing me and skipping school to do it. I got the rest of my stuff back, although the gas can was empty, but they'd already cashed all the cans. I wanted the money from the cans, and my nephews had already spent it all on video games and junk food. I demanded to know how much they got from the cans. It was nearly $200. I told Linda that she now owes me over $200 for the cans and the broken padlock. Linda and Mark went from being angry at their kids to making excuses for them, and then being angry at me for wanting that money back, even though I know they have 3 kids and a mortgage. I said it was either that, or I go to the police and press charges. They told me to get out, and I said they have 2 days to decide how to pay me back before I go to the cops. My nephews are thieves and have stolen from me before. That's why I got the cameras in the first place. What my nephews did was most definitely wrong, but I also know Linda and Mark can't really afford to pay me back. They're blowing up my phone and calling me heartless for giving them an ultimatum when I know they are nearly broke after the holidays. Update 1. Well, I went to the police. I tried to work with Linda and Mark when I called them this morning because I didn't want to wait until after work to speak with them. Not only did they refuse any suggested way of repaying me, they actually said it was my fault for having the cans there in the first place. They claimed I tempted my nephews with the money. I was enraged and said I was done with them. Then they started blowing up my phone all over again. My eldest nephew even sent me a picture of him holding a soda can in his hand and giving me the finger. That was it. I went to the police station, filed a report, and gave them a copy of the video footage of my nephew stealing from my shed, along with the broken lock, screenshots of texts, and even the photo my eldest sent of him flipping me off. I don't know if my nephews have been arrested yet, but I'm assured they will be. Perhaps some community service will change their attitudes. I did tell the police that I found it worrisome that my nephews had taken the machete, but they classified it as a tool, especially since they also took several other tools. Gardening shears, a steel rake, 2 shovels, one of them a folding camping shovel, a full 2-gallon gas can, a cheap power drill I got for about $5 used, an electric hedge trimmer, and a small used electric chainsaw. They didn't touch my lawn mower, weed whacker, extension cords, or the old radio I had in there. I'm not sure why they took what they did. They probably planned to resell them or something. But I got everything back, minus the gas in the can, which was old anyway. After they first broke into my shed, they took what they could by hand, and then came back with shopping carts to haul the cans. They didn't even bother to close the door when they were done. My nephews are now in trouble for trespassing, larceny, and harassment. I'm sure either today or tomorrow my phone will be blowing up when the cops come for those kids. I said it was my hill to die on, and I meant it. I don't even care if I get the money back now. They had their chance. I've already replaced the shed's lock with a much stronger one, and the machete will no longer be kept in there. I've also talked to several neighbors about what happened. They told me cans have been going missing around the neighborhood lately. If anyone had a bag of cans sitting out, it would get stolen. I can't say for sure if my nephews were the culprits, but if they were, they've been doing this for months. I've also spoken with relatives, and they're fed up with Linda and Mark too, so everyone's on my side. which is good to know. I was worried they might turn on me once I filed the police report. But no, they're supporting me. I was also concerned that my nephew's theft started with food and snacks and then escalated to DVDs and video games, which made me start putting my initials on cases and discs with permanent markers so I could prove when my nephews took something. They even tried to borrow items a few times, only to return them later, acting like I was the jerk for enforcing accountability. When they were made to apologize, their apologies were the fakest I've ever heard. The final straw that banned my nephews from my house was when they used my spare hidden key to get in and stole 3 six-packs of my favorite blood orange beer from my fridge and ransacked my kitchen for anything else they wanted. One of them even soiled my bathroom by not only failing to flush, but intentionally urinating on the floor. They tried to deny it, but I knew it was them. The beer they stole was even hidden in their room. Linda and Mark barely punished them. They basically gave me a boys will be boys excuse, and then berated me for wanting accountability. I told them that they now face small claims court for this. I really don't need or want the money. I've already replaced the padlock with a better one. But I want them to learn that their lack of discipline has consequences. My nephews have stolen from me before, and I'm tired of it. I plan to push for community service for them. They hate doing work and just want to whine all the time. And I've also banned them from my house, for good reason. The theft wasn't just about soda cans. They went on to steal DVDs and video games. And when they'd first borrowed things, I'd always call them out. When they were forced to apologize, they'd offer the most insincere apologies ever. Ultimately, I showed them the security camera footage, which I installed without telling anyone. They had no idea the cameras were there, and it's been a smart decision. Update 2. My nephews were indeed arrested on Saturday. The police went to Linda and Mark's house, and they were forced to let the kids in because of a warrant. Apparently, all 3 nephews went from being cocky little brats to crying like babies when they were put in cuffs. I know this because a neighbor, a friend of Linda's, witnessed it. Shortly after the arrest, Linda and Mark started blowing up my phone again. They couldn't get their kids out of jail until Monday morning. Now the boys are being charged with larceny, willful destruction of property, vandalism, and harassment. The police took this case very seriously, as there had been numerous complaints about my nephews for months, but nothing was proven until now. After that, bags of cans have been going missing all over the area. I can't be sure if it was just my nephews, but word is spreading. With more neighbors installing cameras, it seems they might be caught again. Meanwhile, Linda and Mark showed up at my house. I refused to open the door and told them it was all because they're enablers who refused to hold their kids accountable. They screamed and pounded on my door until I threatened to call the police on them too. Since then, they know I mean it. They left, but then continued to blow up my phone. I didn't block them. Instead, I saved all their messages because I plan to take them to small claims court for the damages. I'm asking for $500 for the stolen cans, the cost of the broken padlock and its replacement, and for the emotional harassment. A friend whose father is a lawyer gave me a free consultation and said I have a strong case because of the camera footage and the texts and images of my nephew's misbehavior. When Linda and Mark were served, they called me freaking out, saying I couldn't do this to them. I retorted that this is the price they pay for not parenting their kids and letting them become entitled little thieves. I also told them that if they want to speak to me again, it will only be when I see them in court, or if they pay the $500. Then I hung up. Later that evening, while I was having some friends over after work, there was a knock at the door. I looked outside and saw Linda and Mark looking very unhappy. I opened the door but left the screen door shut, then asked them what they were doing here. They said they were tired of fighting, admitted how badly they'd messed up, and just wanted to make peace. My friends were in full view behind me as Linda slid an envelope through a crack in the door containing $500 in $50 bills, saying it was from her private savings. She said that from now on, they'd ensure my nephews are properly punished for their actions. They didn't ask me to drop the charges. They just pleaded with me to be lenient. I told them I was only pushing for community service, which is pretty lenient, and if we all cooperate, the judge might agree. They sighed and said they'd cooperate if that's all I wanted, then left without further fuss. My relatives later told me that Linda and Mark threatened to disown Linda if she and Mark didn't make changes for the better. Now they are. Perhaps a forced change, but it might be the best we see from them. My mom even visited Linda and Mark after they repaid me. She told me that my nephews aren't playing video games anymore. The TV and gaming consoles have been put away, and that all three nephews are spending most of their time in their rooms and are being very rude to their grandmother. Linda claims they're dealing with the situation, but clearly the behavior isn't improving. Update 3. Things escalated further. My eldest nephew, who has a long history of petty theft, decided he'd had enough. In the middle of the night, he sneaked out and attacked my house with a pair of his dad's claw hammers. He grabbed one in each hand. First, he smashed the new lock on my shed so badly that it became unusable. I later had to remove it with bolt cutters. He also heavily damaged the shed door with the hammer claws. I awoke to the sounds of the hammers and, after peeking out my bedroom window, saw someone outside hitting the shed. I didn't recognize him at first because he had his face covered with a creepy mask. When he saw my bedroom lights come on, he chucked one of the hammers through my window. There was broken glass everywhere, and I was lucky I didn't cut my feet since I was barefoot. Then, he started beating on my back door with the remaining hammer, breaking the knob, the window, and even tearing into the door with the hammer claw. I was worried the door wouldn't hold, so I yelled that the police were on their way. He took off before they arrived. The night vision on my camera showed him wearing a mask of a Star Wars character called the Grand Inquisitor, along with his school hoodie and his distinctive Nike shoes. His fingerprints were on the hammer he threw at my window. They'd already been taken when my nephews were arrested the first time. When the cops came for my eldest nephew, he denied it was him, but there was no doubt. The other hammer was found in his room, along with clothes and the mask, all taken as evidence. Linda and Mark did nothing to protect him. They didn't even try to shift the blame on me. They let their son be taken away, screaming. I wasn't there for the arrest, but Linda later told me that my eldest nephew was switching from crying, that he did nothing wrong, to screaming that it was all my fault. The boy had to undergo a serious mental evaluation and was found to be potentially bipolar. That diagnosis doesn't excuse what he did, though. Later, after being properly diagnosed, he started blaming everything on his bipolar disorder and acted like he should be pitied for getting treatment. He ended up having a month-long stint in juvenile hall. He pleaded guilty to forego court again in exchange for more community service, mandatory counseling, and probation. His father came to my house and personally replaced the broken window and door, though he barely spoke a word to me. My two younger nephews are slowly coming around. They're now allowed back in my house, and I enjoy spending time with them, watching movies and playing games. They've become good kids again, trying to make up for their mistakes. My eldest nephew, however, is not welcome around me or the family at large. I've only seen him once in person in recent months, and he glared at me with more hate than I've ever seen before. He's practically shut down since school started, and I hear he barely speaks at school. His brothers used to follow his lead, but now they've distanced themselves. I've been forced to take legal action and small claims against Linda and Mark, and they're now on the hook for $500 in damages for the stolen cans, broken padlock, court filing fees, and emotional harassment. Update 4. To cover all angles, I installed another camera right above the shed. Now the whole area is under surveillance. I want Linda, Mark, and my nephews to learn their lesson. For the most part, they seem to have learned something. Except my eldest nephew. He just can't let go of his desire for revenge. After my lawsuit was settled, I got the $500 I was asking for. He still attempted to get at me again. One night, he sneaked out in a mask, attacked my shed again, and damaged the new lock with a pair of his claw hammers. The police caught him in the act, and his actions led to him being charged again. He even left a goodbye letter once blaming me and his bipolar disorder for all his problems. His brothers are now more subdued, and I'm told he barely interacts with anyone. My sister and Mark are forced to step up their parenting, and many family members have taken my side. My parents even told me they don't want to see him at Thanksgiving or Christmas Eve this year because they're so fed up with his behavior. Update 5. After the holidays, I hoped for a better update, but things went downhill again. I wrote most of this months ago and waited to see if the situation would improve, but then I forgot to post until recently. Now, here's a nearly final update. Last year, Linda and Mark attended Thanksgiving at Mark's parents' house instead of with my parents. My eldest nephew wasn't on his best behavior there, but he didn't cause a major scene. At least, that's what I was told. Linda and Mark had a long talk with our parents about how excluding my nephew wouldn't help his mental state, and I backed them up on that, because his behavior had alienated everyone. My parents eventually relented and allowed him to come to Christmas Eve. I got him a gift, but I also bought him a used metallic green mountain bike and a backpack from a secondhand store to help him get back on track. When I presented these gifts on a Sunday, he was shocked and awkward, but he accepted them. He's been using them for school, and his behavior has improved somewhat. Though my eldest nephew still isn't allowed near my house, he recently apologized at a family Christmas Eve party. Linda and Mark made him apologize to me in front of everyone. He admitted that he had stolen from me, damaged my property, and that he'd been a bully. We shook hands, and although his parents hovered over him the entire time, it was a start. I continue to see progress with my two younger nephews, and I've been doing my best not to overstep as their uncle. My relationship with Linda and Mark remains strained, but the rest of the family is mostly on my side now. They're even talking about moving closer to my parents after Mark's issues are resolved. I still have more cameras installed, and I'm keeping a close eye on the area